Okay, guys, let's talk about this week's assignment that you have pending. So this week we're going to continue studying the comparison and contrast essay, and we're going to read a couple of essays that represent, comparison and contrast. So please go ahead and read Neat People versus Sloppy People, Batting Cleanup and Striking Out, and We're Not. And then answer the following questions. And you're going to turn in this assignment the same way that you turned in the questions on Sherman Alexie's essay. So what we're going to do is practice formatting again, because many of you had issues with your MLA format, both in the assignment about Alexie's essay and in your narrative essay. Okay, so let's go. So keep in mind that when you format a document using MLA format, you have to first of all pay attention to the font. It has to be Times New Roman size 12. The spacing has to be double spaced. Margins have to be 1 inch all around the document. The running head, you need it in the upper right-hand corner of every page of your document, and it needs to have your last name and the page number. You need a heading and a title. And the heading needs to have, in this order, your name and last name, the professor's name, the class, and the date. Okay, so with this in mind, let's go ahead and apply this. All right, so the first thing is the font. We need it to be Times New Roman size 12. So let's go ahead and set that up. Then we need it to be double spaced. So we go to paragraph and go to double. We click OK. And then we need margins. So we go to layout, to margins, and make sure that it's 1 inch all around, which you see over here, 1 inch all around. So this is what we need. And then we need the running head. And for that, we go into insert to header, because that's what we need, a header. And we choose a template that will allow us to insert our last name. And I think this one here will work. All right, let's see what we have. Perfect. So all I need to do is go over here and insert my last name. And notice that you need to have a space, see it right here, a space between your last name and the page number. And this header, running header, also needs to be set to Times New Roman size 12, and the color needs to be black. Perfect. Last name, space, page number. And this needs to show up on every page. So if I go to page 2 of my essay, you see that it shows up in here. Make sure that you have your last name and the page number, because many of you left a space here or something that said last name instead of your actual last name. So make sure that you set that up, okay? The next thing that we need is the heading, and you need your last name, and I'm going to change it because I don't want to create any confusions. I don't want people to write my last name up in here. So I'm going to pretend that my name is Jane Smith. All right, so here we go. And again, so we need this to be Times New Roman, size 12, and black ink. Perfect. All right, press the escape key. There we go. And let's suppose that my name is Jane Smith. Right, that's my last name. So my name and last name. Then I need my professor's name. So professor's name. There we go. And then I need my class. So this is ENC 1101 and whatever the CRN of your section. And then I need the date. So this is to October the 4th. So 4th October 2020. And then I press enter. And my document always needs a title, and the title needs to be centered. So I go to home, I center it. And this is going to be homework on sloppy people, neat people, neat people versus sloppy people. I need to edit, comma, quotation mark. What's the next essay? Batting cleanup. And striking out. And we're not. Right. There we go. We're not. All right, because those are the essays that we're going to be writing about. All right, so notice how I did this, right? The title is centered, and this is the title of my document, homework. This is my homework. I cannot name my document exactly the same as the essays because I didn't write those essays. And this is not neat people versus sloppy people. This is homework based on neat people versus sloppy people. All right, some of you named your assignment Superman and Me, The Joy of Writing. You cannot do that because you didn't write Superman and Me, The Joy of Writing, right? That was Sherman Alexie. This is just your homework on neat people, etc., etc. Think about copyrights. Right? You cannot use someone else's title for your own work because that would be plagiarism. That would be stealing their title. This is just your homework on what they wrote. All right, notice also that the titles of the essays are in quotation marks. Neat people versus sloppy people, batting cleanup and striking out, and we're not. Each one within quotation marks. Make sure that you do that too. In your essays, every time that you mention neat people versus sloppy people, use the quotation marks. Another thing that you're going to notice is the use of capital letters. When we write titles, we need to capitalize every major part of speech. What does that mean? You need to capitalize, obviously, the first word of your title, and then you need to capitalize every other major part of speech. And that means nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs. All right? You do not need to capitalize prepositions or articles. Okay, so if you notice, or conjunctions. So if you notice, these conjunctions are not capitalized. This preposition is not capitalized because they're not major parts of speech. Of course, unless one of those prepositions or conjunctions is the first word of your title, in which case, obviously, you need to capitalize. All right? So those are, so those are some details to keep in mind. All right, and now we need to justify or flush it to the left margin. Only the left margin. You do not need to justify it to the right margin. No, no, no. Only the left margin. And we're gonna do the same thing that we did last time, right? You know I like shortcuts, so I'm just gonna copy paste. Please write down the question. It helps me create faster because I have the question right there in front of me, right? Hey, what happened? There we go. Okay, good. So I copy paste it. Make sure that everything is Times New Roman size 12. You see I'm fixing it over here. There we go. Everything is Times New Roman size 12 and everything is double spaced. All right, you do not need to bullet your answers. You do not need to write the word answer or just the A for answer. None of that. You just hit tab and then you start answering, write your question, blah, 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 blah. And you keep on going, right? And when you're done with that, you go number 2, like I'm doing over here, and then you grab question number 2, and then you copy paste it. And you make sure that everything is Times New Roman size 12. I don't know why my word processor always defaults back to Calibri. There must be a way that you can just set it up to Times New Roman, but I haven't figured it out. If you guys can do that, then fantastic. Do it, but I haven't figured that out. There must be some way. All right, so, so on and so forth, right? Or all the questions. Remember, please, to number your questions so that I can just grade faster and write down the questions. Again, it helps me grade faster, helps me visualize things and, have the quick reference there. All right? So when you're done, save it in your computer and turn it in. And please remember, right, MLA format, those capital letters, last name over here, space, page number, the order of the heading or header, your name and last name, professor's name, class and date, title, and then the questions followed by the answers, each one. Okay? All right, so hope this helps. Practice makes perfect. And I look forward to reading your answers. There are questions, one last thing before I forget, there are questions that ask you to provide quotes. Make sure that you provide the quote if the question is asking you to. If the question like this one doesn't ask you for a quote, then you don't have to provide it. If you want to, you can always, but it's not, I guess, required if it's not specified, all right? If you do have a quote, go ahead and please review the information that you have in the module and make sure that you embed those quotes correctly, right, using the sandwich method. Make sure that you precede each quote with a lead-in, and then you use those quotation marks, and that you provide parenthetical documentation. Right, so if you go, I guess I can explain this quickly. I have it right here, right? You have an explanation or, again, another diagram that explains the sandwich method. You have to introduce the quote, insert the quotation, those quotation marks, and then explain the quotation. And please make sure that you follow that quotation with parenthetical documentation or parenthetical citation. Same thing. I saw many papers that didn't have that and many assignments that didn't have the citation, and we need to start practicing this. So here you have an example of an embedded quote. You have the lead-in. This is the leading, and you have your signal verb over here. Then you have the quote within quotation marks. And after the quote, but before the final period of the sentence, you have the parenthetical documentation with the last name of the author of the text and the page number, followed by the period. Notice that you do not need a comma in here. You do not need an abbreviation for page. Just keep it simple. Last name of the author and page number, close parenthesis, and then the period. There are some cases in which you'll find that your sentence, or you'll want to keep on adding to your sentence after the quote, and that is perfectly fine. Just make sure that the parenthetical citation goes before the final period of the sentence. So look at this example over here. You have a lead-in that is a fragment, then you have a little chunk of a quote, and the sentence keeps on going after the quote. That's completely fine. Just make sure that the parenthetical citation goes at the end of the sentence before the period. All right? Same thing happens over here. It starts with the lead-in. You have the quote. The sentence keeps on going after the quote. That's fine. And then you have the parenthetical citation before the final period of the sentence. All right? You're going to notice a difference. This one has the last name of the author and the page number in the parenthetical citation, but this one only has the page number. Why do you think that is? What's the difference between this lead-in and this one? Well, yeah, one is longer than the other, but also you have the last name of the author already over here in this lead-in. So that means that you don't have to repeat it in the parenthetical citation. That's just the reason why. If you have the last name of the author in the signal phrase or lead-in, you don't have to repeat it over here in the parenthetical documentation because your reader already has that information in the sentence. All right. Please also notice that every sentence only has one final period. One final period. So let's suppose that this quote has a period here in the original text. You don't need to have a period in here and another one in here. You only need one. Every sentence only needs one final period. So just eliminate whatever period the quote has and just move it after the parenthetical citation. Little details to keep in mind and to practice. So I'll be looking at those parenthetical citations, at those periods, and the quotes, making sure that they are correctly embedded. Before I forget, make sure that you read those sentences and make sure that you don't have comma splices, fused sentences, or fragments, okay? A common mistake is to embed a quote and end up with a fused sentence. Remember that a lead-in or a signal phrase is just that, it's a phrase. Okay, you cannot have a complete sentence followed by a quote because that's a fused sentence. If you have a complete sentence, boom, end it with a period, and then a lead-in, and then the quote. Right? Don't fuse a complete sentence and a quote. Use a lead-in or a signal phrase, emphasis on phrase, and then the quote. All right, I'll let you go, guys. If you have questions, feel free to email me. Bye.